Hello everybody, hope you're all doing well. Recently I've been playing Anno 1800 and I've been absolutely loving it. I've been playing the closed beta, which I think is probably just about over by the time this video is out. Now Anno 1800 wasn't really a game I had an interest in. I haven't played any of the previous in the series, but I always thought, it looked kind of interesting just being a fan of management and city builders in general. And every time I was thinking of purchasing one of them, someone would tell me, nah, you don't want to get that, you want to get this older one, the old ones are much better. And ultimately, I just ended up never getting any. Now, however, with Anno 1800, there was a bit of a buzz about it in my Discord from a few people saying, oh, it's a return to form, it could be the best in the series, and one of my mods sent me an invite key to the closed beta this past weekend, so I ended up trying it out, and my god was it good, it was so good. We streamed it for a few days consecutively. I think I clocked about 25 hours in it across 2 or 3 days, so I really enjoyed it. So again, I'm coming from the perspective of someone who hasn't played the previous games. I picked up Anno 1404 since playing this one to hopefully tide me over until the release of the full game in April. So what's the deal with Anno 1800? What's got me so excited? It's kind of hard to nail down, but I thought what I'd do is I'll briefly go through my time with the beta and what you do in the game, and you can decide if it's a game for you or not. So basically, in Anno 1800, you're in charge of a trade company that you use to build a colony to harvest resources and assert economic dominance on the map. You also do a bit of exploration, discovering new continents which come with their own challenges, and all of this is kind of done in a race against the AI, who are also doing the same thing. They're colonizing islands, they're building up, and exploiting the land for themselves. As you build up, you eventually advance the ages and get more specialized workers and cities that require more complex items that need multiple stages of refinement, and items that can only be found on different islands and on different continents. There's also neutral type AI that you can trade with or fight in the form of pirates, and combat takes place at sea, and it's a fairly simple form of naval combat, but it works well within the context of a city builder game. Now if you're an aggressive military power, you can take over other AI companies and conquer their islands by destroying or blockading their ports, or you can forcibly take shares in their islands to do buyouts and hostile takeovers. So that's essentially a broad overview of what you do in the game. Now I'll slow down a bit, take it back to basics, and talk to you about what you do most of, which is the city building and resource management. So we'll start off with the basics. Your colony starts with just some farmers. They have 3 basic needs required to grow and 2 luxury needs needed to keep them happy. Service buildings will also be needed to keep close to them, such as like a fire station or police station, just to prevent fires and rioting if they become unhappy. Now the happier they are, the more tax they pay and the more money you earn off population. Every building you place requires some sort of maintenance cost, so the game is a constant fight between building and expanding, which increases your expenses, versus having a population that is happy and pays their taxes to keep income going. So if we go back to the 3 needs mentioned, farmers need to be close to a market, they need to have a supply of fish, and they need a supply of fresh clothing. For a market, you just need to build one close by. For fish, you just need a fishery dockyard, and for clothing, you'll need to do your first set of refinements. So clothing requires a sheepfold to produce wool, and a framework knitters which takes the wool and makes clothing. These buildings require a certain number of jobs for a certain class to be working at full efficiency. They then also need to be in range of a nearby warehouse, so that they can take their produced goods and store them there. So for every item produced, a little cart will take it to a warehouse and unload it. The unloading process actually takes time, and there's a certain number of loading bays, so if you have too many things depending on just one warehouse, you'll start getting backed up traffic for unloading, but you can spend some money to upgrade the warehouses to increase the loading bays and allow for more goods to flow. All warehouses have access to your global inventory, so you don't need to take goods from one side of the island to the other, and workers don't travel from one part of town to the other either. So in that regard, it's not really like city skylines where population is simulated and they go from their home to their jobs. Instead, they just take the jobs available and work there no problem. Where the transport of goods does matter is between colonies, but we'll get to that in a bit. So once your clothing is up and running and you're storing it in warehouses, the clothing need will be fulfilled by your population and they will grow. Then when they reach full population, you can upgrade them to become workers and begin the age of industrialization. Then you'll have access to new resources and refineries such as mining, mills, bakeries, slaughterhouses and things like that. And all of these new things will require the worker class and the farmer class to produce new goods. The farmer class, for instance, will now have access to wheat fields, while the worker class will refine the wheat in flour mills and bakeries to produce bread. Building things in proximity to each other means that goods don't need to travel to a warehouse, they'll go directly to what's consuming it. So you can get a little bit more efficient with your building if you create a road network that allows products to get to where they're going instead of waiting to load and unload at warehouses. Now, unlike the farmers, these workers don't just have 3 needs, but they actually have 7, and they're mostly refined goods. They also have more happiness requirements and require more services like schools and churches to keep them happy. Just like before though, if you fill the needs of the population, they'll grow, and if they're happy, they'll then pay their taxes. And this new class of population pay more taxes than the previous, so you can make more money off of them, but often the buildings they require to produce these luxuries can be more expensive to maintain, so again, it's a fine balance. Also, something I didn't really mention is that all of the building materials for all of these buildings come from resources that you have to build and manage, just like the sheepfold I showed earlier. And as you advance, the structures require more things like steel and bricks, and these have to be refined themselves. So hopefully you get the basic idea. This then extends to a 3rd class, which has even more requirements and needs, and I believe in the full game there will be a 4th and 5th class to deal with, so it can get pretty complex. Now, as an example of the complexity, the 2nd class require beer as a luxury to keep them happy, but this will have to be found on other islands typically, so you'll have to set sail and explore other islands looking for one that has suitable fertility to produce hops. Then you essentially start all over again by colonizing the island, building up your farmer population just how you did before. Now, it is a little bit quicker the 2nd time round as you've already reached the new age globally, so you don't have to wait before you can put down tier 2 type buildings for farmers to work in. So ideally, you want to set up your islands to produce their unique resources and then set up trade routes between islands to ferry goods to and from them. Each island has a local storage economy and local supply and demand, so having a huge excess of beer in one place doesn't automatically go to the other place unless you physically move it between islands. And this is where shipbuilding comes in. You can build a variety of ships and they have different inventory slots and capabilities. Some are faster trade ships and some are more military ships that are designed for defense or escorting and protecting trade routes. The wind direction shifts over time, and that actually does play a small effect on the speed of your routes too. And you can also travel to other islands and receive quests from the other AI characters or NPCs to do certain small tasks. And if you build up relations with them, you can then strike trade deals and supply them with what they need or purchase extras that they have on offer. You can also set your stuff for sale and they might come and collect it at your port. So as an example, maybe you just couldn't find hops on any other islands. You could maybe buy beer directly from one of the other guys, and that way your population will be satisfied. Now, further to all of this, you can do expeditions where you load up a ship with goods to find a new place to colonize. And these are outside of the map, and these are kind of like mini story events with some choices along the way, where you have to keep your morale up on the ship and you have to find a place to settle. Now, once you do, you can then send goods to and from this new map, and these maps are then called sessions. Now, while in one session, the other sessions still run in the background and keep ticking, and your income is global, so they have to run in the background. And you can flick between them instantly and see problems, and I've had fires, outbreak, or riots happen while I'm looking and keeping busy with stuff in the new world. It's really actually quite impressive how it's able to run the simulation of a whole map and city and AIs in one map at the same time as you're doing something in another map. Now, different continents are essentially different biomes. The New World is tropical, with things like sugarcane, coffee, bananas, and other refinement possibilities. And this is stuff that's required to sustain higher class populations back in the Old World. So, just like how islands sustained each other on one map early on, now continents across these different maps will sustain each other as your population gets more demanding. Now, I'm not sure if there's more continents than just the 2. There's also a desert biome and Arctic biome on the overview, so I'm assuming that they're probably going to be coming later in DLC because I just couldn't find any information about it. I feel like if it was in the game, Ubisoft and Blue Byte would be kind of saying that in the Steam description or something somewhere. Maybe people can let me know in the comments if you guys know, but I would assume DLC. We'll have to see. So that's pretty much everything on the economy side of things. There's also special items and buffs that you can place on ships, on trade routes, or specific buildings to help production in certain places. And there's newspapers that publish regularly with this, which essentially are buffs or debuff mechanic that you can kind of counter by spending influence that builds up over time. I believe they said after the beta they're changing how that's going to work a bit, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. It's pretty simple as it stands anyway at the moment. Next is the actual feel of the game, building the cities, navigating the UI, and how easy it is to understand and get enjoyment out of it. Basically, it's really user-friendly. I picked up the game really quickly, and the UI slowly expands with more stuff as you build up, so it's not too overwhelming. It's also partly customizable, so you can bind frequently used things to a mouse wheel selection tool or to a hotbar. It's very easy to understand where goods are coming and going to, as a line is drawn from the nearest warehouses or production facilities. And when you want to do something and you kind of have an idea in your head how it should work, it typically just works that way. When I wanted to transfer an item from one ship to another, I literally just dragged and dropped it onto the other ship and it worked, and I was very surprised that it was just that easy. The building system itself is very simple to manage, as it's all done on a fine grid. Now, the drawback of a grid is obviously that you get slightly more unnatural looking cities than you would maybe in city skylines, for instance. But as the grid is pretty small, you can leave pockets open and fill them later with patchy fields or ornaments or trees or pathways and things like that. And once you do, the people will then actually use every little bit of your city and make it really feel alive. I think this is by far the best looking city building game ever, and as I said on stream, it really has no right to look as good as it does. The water and the landscapes are absolutely breathtaking at times, especially in the New World's tropical biome. Every building seems to have its own animations, with molten iron pouring into casts and steelworks, and little carts coming down from the mountains from the mines, pigs and cattle moving around, and supply wagons and people carrying goods to and from depots. The city really does feel alive, and while it's not truly simulating a person's day-to-day journey of going to and from work, it still does really give the impression of a breathing and living city. And you'll definitely know it's alive if you have a riot. You can trust me on that.
Oh my god. They're storming the market. Oh, fuck me. Like Rome 2. Oh god. That looks great though. Looks really cool. I'm gonna take a picture of that. And they've got their own like little banners and stuff. Like they're like trying to. Oh my god, it's actually way more of them. Trying to be like independent. I think it's spreading. That's not good.
So that's it for my video on Anno 1800. A bit of a shorter one, but I just wanted to spread the word after I was sort of uninterested in the game, and it really turned me around. And for a beta, the level of polish was outstanding, with only a few minor graphical bugs, nothing that really interrupted gameplay from my experience. I did get a weird animal explosion bug. I almost feel it's almost been put in there, I feel like, because it's just so over the top. Now, the only thing that I would have concerns about with the gameplay, for me, it did seem like the AI was pretty passive and quite easy to like just destroy them, so there didn't feel like there was much challenge. There is also multiplayer, so that you can play with other people. You can play up to 4 players, so you can compete or cooperate with friends to build a massive trade empire. But ultimately, I really do hope they get the AI just to be a little bit more competitive. Now, I didn't play it on the hardest difficulty, I only played it on easy and then normal, so maybe that's my problem there, but it did seem quite passive, and maybe it's just the beta, but it has to be mentioned that that's the case. So that's it for the video. Let me know what you think of Anno, and if you think you'll be picking it up. I just grabbed Anno 1404 on a sale for about $3, so I'm hoping to get a few weeks of playtime out of that before Anno 1800 releases in April. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you like seeing other games now and then, leave a like, share the video with people you think would be interested, and I'll see you in the next one.